Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Tyler. Today's topic is going to be AI transformation holistically. The first question that I have for you, Tyler, as co founder and CTO here at True Horizon, responsible for technical excellence, leading development and deployment across projects and builds, is what does AI transformation actually mean to you?
AI transformation means many things from both the strategic and technical perspective. You could probably speak more to the strategic. Transformation has many components. The first is to consider is transformation within your organization itself, regardless of the technical competence, the complexity of the builds. It's how much is everyone within your organization picking up AI. And when we talk about this, we usually talk about one of our clients who deployed N8N. N8N is if not familiar, a AI automation low code tool framework. They deployed that out to their 6,500 employees and were basically just like ramming it down their throats with the hopes that all of their 6,500 employees started implementing AI and automation in their daily life. And so there's the paradigm shift of having everyone use AI to get the ROI at the grassroots level. And then there's high level initiatives and projects that you can put into place across your organization in order to make your processes more AI friendly. And one of those might be something as simple as just a lead scraping engine for your sales team so that they don't have to go search the web and find leads. So in my mind, it can be broken down into those two facets. I'm sure there's more complexity there, but that's what it would mean to me, I'd say.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that you hit on. I think for me, I think of an end-to-end pipeline almost, and so it almost always can and should start with strategy and planning. And so in that, I think of things like use case identification, ROI prioritization across different projects and initiative, data governance. How are we thinking about who has access to what kinds of LLMs, and how do we segment out that different data and knowledge sources? There's obviously a massive strategic and management consulting phase that goes on there. So, folks at the top should generally know what's kind of happening. I think from that, we move into like an education and enablement kind of an aspect or a phase. So upskilling folks, basics of how to get more out of prompting ChatGPT, how to get more out of prompting your, regular LLM. What are some of these platform options? What tools come out of the box? How to think about when and where to use AI for like just generally like everyone inside of your company. And then I would move over into like actual development, deployment, implementation, monitoring, support, and putting forth solutions into production that actually are driving that value. So yeah, I think within that entire like end-to-end pipeline, that's what you can define as an AI transformation. I think in any one of those buckets, you could dive really, really deep. I'm curious, what are your thoughts around like a successful deployment and rollout of solutions?
From the perspective of adoption or quality delivery?
I guess let's start with adoption. Let's start with adoption.
Adoption is tough. Adoption is tough because, well, first of all, AI is somewhat politicized, and to break typical processes, that process is harder than sticking to the old one. So if we build a simple chat bot that tells project managers what tasks are in their backlog today and let them add it dynamically, well, how do you get them from just like using that from making new tickets in Jira or something? Adoption is hard. I mean, how do you make any product adopted? I would imagine it has to not only feel good, it has to have ROI in their lives and allow them to open up opportunities in their job. Something that gets talked about with ROI that we know about is how you conceive of ROI. So some of our clients have broken it down into two categories: cost savings and cost avoidance. Cost savings being how many hours are you saving with your AI automations so that your team can go do other things. So if I'm a PM, I'm not manually making tasks in my backlog. I'm now actually thinking about the high level implementation, checking in on my team more so I don't have to do the dirty work. And there's cost avoidance, which means like how many people can you get rid of? And so, adoption, showing the cost savings, showing the cost avoidance to people and demonstrating what they can do with it, I think is very important. But adoption is tricky. I don't know. It just has to be a good product.
Yeah. How do you think organizations can balance, like, because what you described, I think, is adoption of like holistic, AI solutions like automation chains. We think about how to like roll up ROI into to language that like a CFO will understand and can approve more like AI budgets. I'm even wondering, like, even one level below that, like, how do you think organizations can approach getting people to like use ChatGPT in their daily life? Because like I know you and I use regular LLMs like all day, every day almost to speed up our own work and write things for us and think through strategies and frameworks, etc. I'm wondering if yeah, how would you approach it as an organization trying to get those efficiency gains propagated through to the entire company?
Yeah. So I would say this at the risk of compressing timelines that I don't think need to be compressed, but for a very long time I was very pure. ChatGPT and these coding tools have accelerated development for probably 2 years ish successfully, maybe one and a half. But I only started using them consistently for dev about a year ago. And the reason was, oh, it's AI slop. I don't trust it. I trust my own brain more. And then you're like, oh, crud. I need a miracle in order to get this deliverable over the timeline. And then you open up ChatGPT and ask it to implement a front end for you, or you open up Lovable and ask it to do the same, or Claude Code. And then you're like, oh, crap. I should probably be using this. So you want an effective way to enforce the usage of AI? Give your employees no choice. Cut the timeline. Do I believe
Right.
in that approach as someone who wants my employees to be happy? No. But you will adopt tools in order to accomplish your goal. And if it's the only way to accomplish your goal in a certain time period, there you go.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we're headed. Timeline is just getting halved, quartered, tenth
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah. 100%. I got off a call actually with a client earlier today who's basically said, I mean, we've delivered pretty extreme ROI metrics for them, something in the neighborhood of 25 to 30x ROI on our engagement in less than half a year. And the pressure that they're getting above from their private equity backers and their board is that they expect more. And like these kind of numbers have not really been enabled by any technology before to get those kinds of ROIs at like that short. Uh and so yeah, I mean it's just a crazy time I think where the technology is so good and people's expectations are so polarizing that it can be tough to. I think that also creates a barrier to adoption.
Yeah. So this brings up something I wrote down at the beginning of this, which is we're talking about what AI transformation means, but for anyone hopefully watching this who relates to what you just said of I have my LP at my VC or my investors screaming at me to implement AI, like why? Why do an AI transformation in the first place? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I think there's two ways to look at it. I think the first way is like look at it like present day. What is possible? And what we've seen, something that's possible, enterprise company wide AI transformation, 25 to 30x ROI in less than half a year is really solid, right? Like double digit FTE reduction, massive efficiency gains, less errors, manual processes being automated, more time being spent for humans to do creative work, customer facing work, build relationships. I think all of that is extremely possible today. So organizations should adopt that today, which will create a lasting competitive advantage. Leading into my second point is look at where AI is going, right? Where I think the CEO of Anthropic and Google's DeepMind CEO disagree a little bit on when it is that we're gonna hit that. Okay, AI and foundational models can recursively self-improve, and now like boom, we're off to the races. I think as that gets closer and closer, the capabilities will just get more and more and better and better. We've seen that with Claudebot, I guess now known as Moltbot. The founder of Moltbot tweeted out a story of how Moltbot itself gave gave itself voice capability. So he actually never programmed the voice interface and Moltbot having like a text to speech on its own accord. And it just did that, on its own because it reasoned itself that that would make it more efficient to communicate with itself. And so I think like that, as that gets better and better, the capabilities, the innovations, the art of what's possible is also going to continue to expand. And so yeah, I mean, I guess to get back to the original question is those would be like two reasons why is like technology is not going anywhere. It's just getting better and better. And what's possible today already presents a great avenue for returns.
Right. And knowing that it's going to continue to improve, it's probably best to jump on the bandwagon earlier.
Yeah.
Because if it's so impressive in a year's time and you're only then getting used to how to use it, but instead, if you get used to using it now, know how to implement into your systems, that just positions you better strategically for the long term. So,
yeah.
Why an AI transformation? I guess it's already making impacts, and get ready for what's coming.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. It's like Bitcoin in 2018. Like,
well,
buy in now.
I wouldn't make the analogies to Bitcoin just because I feel like that vacillates so much, and I don't want AI to be perceived in the same way.
That's true. That's true. That is true.
Yeah. But for sure. Another point I wrote down earlier is, we were talking like, what does an AI transformation mean? One of the reasons why you might want to do one alongside a partner like ourselves, or to do it in general, is to enable your employees to use it in their day-to-day processes to witness the macro effect through the micro usage of AI. But the question is, how do they become better?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What can people start doing? What does it mean to take, I don't know, at the risk of being slightly edgy, I don't think it's edgy, like, how does 60-year-old Karen and, HR begin to use AI to enable her life?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting question. It's something that I'm passionate. Like, I mean, I have like some, I guess, like boomer uncles, I guess, again, at the risk of being edgy, that like ask me all the time, like, what can they do? And I'll show them just a really, really basic use case of, for example, you can get an AI note taker to listen in on your calls and automatically draft some of the action items from that call. So like if an action item was, hey, okay, we need to send this message to this other team, by the time you hang up on the call, you go get a glass of water and come back, AI's drafted the first message and just gets you there like 80% of the way. So I think like a really good place to start is like I think writing. So like anytime, people write emails, people write strategies, people write briefings, they write meeting agendas. I think that is like a really good place where people can start to drive some impact, save themselves some time. And oftentimes, and there's a lot of techniques there too, right? Like, ask AI to find flaws in your thinking, ask AI to ask you clarifying questions, give AI the answers to those clarifying questions, and boom, all of a sudden now your brief is, instead of 70% of the way there, it's 90% of the way there. So I think those would be some of the basic and easiest places to start, because it's as simple as just interacting via an LLM interface. But yeah, I don't know. For me, that's what intuitively makes sense. What comes to mind for you?
Well, there's the, I guess you could say service level of how does Karen use ChatGPT to write an email, which part of your answer, it sounds like, and what I think is the answer there, is witness the magic, see how much time it saves you, and you'll probably never go back to writing an email without the assistance of ChatGPT, because if you've ever written an email longer than 2 paragraphs, it takes you like 30 minutes.
Yep.
But now you can just brain dump and it goes. The latter part is, okay, like, let's say Karen has witnessed the magic of writing an email with AI, and then she starts thinking, okay, like, how can I get all my emails from my inbox, and how can I get it to summarize that, and then how can I have it auto draft and send an email? And so now we go beyond just generating some stuff in ChatGPT into actioning and connecting with applications and more perhaps complex implementation.
Yep.
And so how do we get there? Because if you have an organization of 6,500 people who are able to implement AI systems, AI agents in their daily responsibilities, doesn't have to be the most complex end-to-end Claude-esque, Claude Code-esque application, something as simple as an AI agent to draft emails or do lead discovery. You have an organization that is going to explode, in my opinion. And I think that's where the real power of AI enablement and transformation comes in, is at the grassroots level for everybody. So I'm curious what you think of, okay, there's using ChatGPT, but then how do we go to the next level?
Yeah, I think I think that's where tools like N8N come in, right? I think like foundational model providers are getting closer and closer to more basic use cases of that. Like, I mean, we've already seen that with, Claude Desktop and Claude Code and all these things now. And Moltbot being able to take over your browser. So like even things like booking flights and all, like you can do that with one place with natural language and of course having human in the loop. And a lot of that is possible. I think like if I think about like the person who has no idea what's going on, they've barely even used ChatGPT. I think like we said, like phase one is like that. Phase two would then be probably implementing a tool like that or trying to expand capabilities into something like a cloud desktop or using a Moltbot. But I'm curious because you can actually probably speak on this a little bit more. Like the initial adoption from someone who has little to zero technical experience to using a tool like N8N or maybe even like, running Cloud Code by themselves to give it access to these tools such that it can summarize. Like, how do you see that being like, do you think that is possible for someone with zero technical experience at all and like a pretty frictionless way to be able to use these tools to get capabilities like that?
I do. I think Claude Code and chat systems are too much of a black box to instill confidence. So this is something I think about regularly with AI systems is it is so much of a black box that it's hard for you to buy into what it's doing because it's non-deterministic. So then how do you build something like it while understanding what's happening under the hood? In the past, it has meant programming, and that's too intimidating for like 90% of the population. So how do you meet somewhere in the middle? And that is through tools like N8N. And so I do think that through tools like N8N, you might reference make.com and some other local tools, but seeing input come in, agent process, choose something, even that high level system diagram, seeing the wheels turn makes a difference to someone who has never programmed before.
Yep.
And I think those interfaces in N8N are sufficiently intuitive. It's just basically a system diagram that is interactive and produces output.
Right.
While mimicking actual code execution. So I do think it's possible. I think anybody can build a house, conceive of how to build a house, and therefore I think anybody can conceive of how to build an AI agent or AI system, no matter how simple. And tools like N8N have made that very easy.
Yeah.
It takes some time, with anything to wrap your head around it, but N8N has made it possible for anyone, literally anyone, within an hour to spin up a very simple AI agent connected to your email. Like literally anybody. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're Karen. Doesn't matter really. I mean, I think if you're, well, I don't want to I don't want to say things too risky, but pretty much anybody
Right.
could do it.
Yeah. 100%. I'm curious. What do you think about like how companies might be able to show that? Like how does something like you've got 200 or 300 people who before weren't using AI at all, and now they are for tasks like this, like speeding up their email writing or speeding up their proposal generation or meeting summaries. How does that translate into something tangible showing up in the P&L?
Like, how does everybody beginning to use tools like N8N or Build it? How does that show up in the P&L?
Yeah.
Oof. Well,
like if we have, because there's a basic one is like, okay, they can quantify it. Now I'm saving 10 hours
right.
per week and my salary is 100K and, multiply it like that. But I'm curious if there's something, deeper even there.
Well, there's generic responses to that question and targeted cases in an organization. Unfortunately, I think the most obvious one is FTE reduction. With AI by his side or her side or their side, one person can do just as much as, three of their peers, perhaps.
Yeah.
For one, we've actually seen this in software development teams. A lot of enterprise organizations, I don't entirely understand why yet, but they're turning to two teams of AI-enabled senior devs instead of a team of one senior dev, 3 to 4 junior engineers. Like they're just not hiring junior engineers as much, which there's a separate discussion around whether that is a good strategy for your workforce in general, but that's what they're doing. And the reason is you get the same output, less cooks in the kitchen. I mean, I think showing up in the P&L, I think there's something to be said about not only FTE reduction, but the bloat that happens in enterprises. You have 10 people on one code base. That gets messy. That's why we have merge requests and PRs and branches. It gets very complicated, but with less cooks in the kitchen, you move faster. It's just about, in the past, it's been manpower. How fast can you move? Which is why you have 10 people, but now you can move that fast with 2.
Right.
Less mind share, less mess, chaos, more efficiency.
Yeah.
And so that's how it shows up in the P&L ultimately.
Yeah. What I'm curious, what do you actually think of that strategy? Because I think we've seen like coding and programming as a use case being on somewhat of the bleeding edge of AI. Like as different capabilities get better in LLM, seemingly writing code and programming is one of those ones that is consistently improving. So I'm wondering, what do you think of what do you think of that strategy? Because I mean, a lot of big tech companies have a mandate of we're not hiring junior devs right now. If you're not an AI enabled dev, we're not even going to look at you in the first place. But even then, their strategy has still shifted to like only senior engineers. I mean, how do you think that bodes on a 3, 4, 5 year timeline?
Well, it's kind of like population growth rates. So, like in most of the world, we're experiencing unprecedentedly low population growth rates, like South Korea. They have a population growth rate below 1. What does that mean? It means there are more old people than there are young people, which means that over time, their population will decrease to the extent they can't sustain their own society. The same is true of the population of engineers. There will be no engineers. There will be no engineers learning how to implement an enterprise or use these tools. If there's no one learning and working, eventually you will just have a shortage. And there's already a shortage of senior software engineers.
Yeah.
So I think it's a tremendously stupid approach from a macro level. But if you're one organization trying to increase your bottom line right now, here in this moment, yeah, that's the best short-term thing to do. But long-term, I think it can only render collapse.
How far do you think the LLM actually writing production grade code will go? Do you think we will ever get to a point where human software engineers, regardless of whether or not you're junior, senior, 30, 40, 50 years of experience, do you see a world where that job just gets eliminated entirely, where you just have coding agents running around doing absolutely everything?
I was thinking about this earlier in this conversation because this sort of opens up the can of worms of when do we let AI become fully autonomous rather than a monitored entity? Because right now, most AI systems like ChatGPT, like anything that creates, audio, art, code, it's not deploying it on its own. Somebody generates, somebody sanity checks, somebody sends, human in the loop style. At what point does it become sufficiently trustworthy to do that? I don't know. I don't really have any opinions on how fast AI is moving or anything like that. I know that it can already write production quality code, but you should never ship it without looking at it.
Right.
Something our VP of engineering, Martin, always says is you should understand every line of code that you or an AI has written. Because I just don't think it makes any sense to ship anything that you don't understand how it works. And you could go down the rabbit hole of vibe coding and a bug appearing that a user reports and asking AI to fix that bug and continue that pipeline. But either we're not at the place where intelligence is sufficient, or or you won't be able to fix it yourself. I mean, even today, this morning, he said that AI was debugging something for him and reported that it was fine. And then when he audited the code and went in there, it wasn't at all. And I don't know if that's an intelligence failure. I mean, yes, it probably is. There are a lot of problems with modern AI where it couldn't autonomously become your software developer or your sales representative.
Yeah.
Perhaps it'll be resolved in the future. I think it's more than just self-reinforcement and training. I think it's largely architectural, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me wonder though, what jobs today could actually just be fully replaced.
So I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and if you're someone looking to implement AI in your enterprise stack or bring it into your organization in general, the first use cases you should target are those where imperfection is acceptable. You cannot put AI in a mission critical workflow right now where the decisions are mission critical. You would not let AI steer the rocket ship that sends the astronauts into space, but you would let it write an outbound email that you could then edit or something along those lines. What was your question?
The question was, what jobs today are fully replaceable, like 100% replaceable?
Fully replaceable. So, like, I mean, anything that's like extremely manual, like data entry.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, you don't need someone to, type in what someone's birth date is or their name and stuff. Like, you can just talk to an AI and it can extract the information, which points in the direction of customer service stuff as well, which is something we've done in the past for Topgolf. Simple bot answers the phone. Do you want to book a bay to play golf today? Cool. What time? Blah, blah, blah. It can do that. So digitally manually intensive tasks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what comes to mind for me are like most customer support functions. So like
Yeah.
anything that involves fielding inbound calls, and then the action from that involves logging something in an ERP or in a PMS or whatever, in a CRM, whatever it is. That is 100% automatable, and you're probably better off actually having an AI agent do that. That will never miss a call, with the right prompting and the right system architecture will also hopefully never make a mistake, or with 99.9% confidence won't make a mistake. So I think that would be one. I think another one is, I think of like, there's a lot of like random niche jobs, especially as you get into enterprises where there's very specific, like I'm thinking about a client of ours where there's a person in finance whose entire role is to basically check for bookings discrepancies. And just an FTE, and her entire role is like finding data in Salesforce and matching that with other incoming data that's coming in via other sources. That's literally all she does for 40 hours a week. And something like that, where it's literally just checking data. Like, okay, read Salesforce. How is this data? Read these other two data sources. Does the data match? Yes or no? If yes, do this. If no, do this. And it's 100% deterministic. That to me, and if that's a role, I just imagine what other types of these like niche roles are there that could be, fully automated. And then I think like there's some operational back-end tasks that might get automated. Argument to be made there for an AI SDR. At least like creating meeting bookings, you probably still want someone selling and closing, depending on the ticket size of what it is that you're selling. But at least like generating qualified meetings, I think AI SDR is absolutely something to be looked at, and maybe a handful of others. But those are the ones that I would probably have some more confidence in.
Yeah, niche is a good way to put it because there are a lot of niche cases like the bookings discrepancy where it's purely manual, but it's so niche that no one's thought to build a SaaS before or an AI agent. The other thing I was going to say there is everybody's thinking about AI now, but that has somehow put everybody onto software in general in a way that has never been seen before. And now people are conflating AI with deterministic programming and software.
Yeah.
And so if you're an enterprise leader thinking like AI, actually you should be thinking automate, automate, automate. AI is a means to an end for automation. And that's what software has always been about. But the cool thing now is that we can talk about bookings discrepancy case where there was never, a market for a $10 million SaaS to arise, where we can implement it in 3 days with N8N or an equivalent 5-coded solution, and then it makes sense to go implement those kind of things. Niche is another good word. I think of a certain stakeholder who said, I don't want anyone in my company who is neither a subject matter expert or an AI forward employee.
Right.
And then like 2 weeks later, he was like, I don't even want the subject matter experts.
Right.
And why doesn't he want the subject matter experts? The reason is AI is a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
Of everything conceivably. You can make an AI that is a subject matter expert in a certain criteria with the proper knowledge base. It has the entire web at its disposal to do that. So if you have someone in your organization who's really, really good at like C# or C++, or who knows very specific tax codes or something like that, unfortunately, you don't necessarily need them anymore. However, I would rather that person be steering the AI at this time to validate its behavior. And then once there's confidence, I guess you could then there's a discussion to be had whether they're necessary anymore. But the subject matter experts are important to drive the AI that will replace them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's it's kind of ironic because it's like that's the person who needs to do a knowledge transfer to a particular AI system such that AI system can actually replace them.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you get that person to do that knowing that it probably ends in their job being gone?
Yeah. There's a larger economic, moral, philosophical question here of, your company's going through an AI transformation. It's important that you monitor the performance of AIs that will someday fire you.
Right.
So how do you pivot yourself in a way where you keep your job?
Right. And I would say, by the way, to that person, like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the light at the end of the tunnel is like it's less of a light at the end of the tunnel, more so of like a just upskill in AI yourself.
Right.
Right now, the knowledge gap is so large. The skills are virtually non-existent in the workforce if you are the person saying, here's what we can do with AI and here's how we do it roughly, like you're not going anywhere. Your job is safe.
Right.
You just have to be that person, which takes a non-trivial amount of upskilling and learning and education. Thankfully, we're in the information era. There's I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of hours of educational content out there for free for anyone to go and view. And so that's also, I would also want to propagate that message through is like, especially today, like be that person that can drive an AI initiative or roughly knows what it is, and you can educate other people inside of the company. You've got more job security than probably anyone has had in the past.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, okay, so you've replaced your own job, but now you're someone in the company who has overseen an AI transformation
Right.
at some level. If you can speak with authority about AI in any organization nowadays, you're functionally a superstar.
Exactly.
People have no idea what they're doing. I hear routinely from one of my friends who's at an HVAC company that they have meetings about AI, and it's like an hour where people are just like, so what is this? What do we do? Everybody's just brainstorming, but no one knows where to start. No one knows what to build. No one knows what tools to use. No one knows who to hire. And then I have friends at consulting firms who are like, these guys don't even know what they're doing. Our bosses are saying and selling AI, but they don't know how to implement either. And I won't, call out anyone in particular, but I will say that most big consulting firms in the world nowadays, your McKinseys, your KPMGs, your, whatever they are, at the risk of being combative, I don't think they're as competent as AI as they make themselves out to be. I don't think that expertise is there. I think they're selling what the hype is right now, and I think we can go toe to toe with any of them. And we're cheaper, so just to put that out there. But yeah,
yeah, a little plug right there. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think that this conversation is around AI transformation. What does it mean to not only bring it to your people, but to bring it to your entire stack? And I think, as much as the conversation is around FTE reduction and some things that many would consider dark and gloomy in many ways, there's still opportunity there to make an impact and do meaningful things by adopting AI, no matter if you're a C-suite individual or someone who's in a lower level role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Honestly, probably can't think of a better way to conclude it.
Yeah.
I
think so. Well, yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah.